Now we're going to talk about isosceles and equilateral triangles and how to use those to solve equations and find angles and all of that good stuff. So equilateral means equal sides. Equiangular means equal angles. So all three sides of this triangle are congruent to each other, and all three angles are. Well, we learned before that a triangle has 180 degrees, and if all of these are the same, then basically we do 180 divided by 3, which is 60. So in all equiangular equilateral triangles, the interior angles add up to 60, or are each 60 degrees. All right, a couple other little things about equilateral triangles. If you kind of draw the height down from a vertex to the opposite side, you really form two right triangles. So that would be a perpendicular bisector, which means that this piece and that piece are equal also. And that might come in handy at some point, so I thought that was important to mention. Make sure you have your diagram labeled, and we can write down here all sides are congruent, all angles are congruent. That means they're each 60 degrees. All right, isosceles triangles, and they'll tell you it's isosceles or they'll have marks like this. Remember, isosceles means two congruent sides. And it's not always going to be facing up. So you might have an isosceles triangle sideways. It doesn't matter as long as you keep an eye on those. In an isosceles triangle, there are also two congruent angles. Those angles are called base angles. And base angles are congruent. You can find the base angles by looking across the triangle from the two congruent sides. Okay, so again, the base angles could end up being on top of the triangle if the triangle is upside down, but it's always the ones across from the congruent sides. And in isosceles triangles, also from the vertex angle, this is the vertex angle, from the vertex angle to the base, we can break it into two right triangles, and that will break the base of the triangle into two congruent pieces, which might come in handy, so it's good stuff to know. All right, pause if you need to take more time to write that down or rewind. I'm going to do some examples. The first example is pretty much as basic as you can get. This triangle has two congruent sides, so it's isosceles. And we're not talking about sides in this picture. The sides tell us it's isosceles, but you can see our angles we're looking at are this one and this one. Since those angles are across from the congruent sides, then those are the base angles. And we learned up here that base angles are congruent. So we can set them equal. 4x plus 7 equals 9x minus 33. All right, and then solve. So I would recommend you pause the video to solve so you can check your answer. All right. X equals 8, and if we needed to know the measure of these angles, we would plug the 8 in. So we have 4 times 8 plus 7. This is 39 degrees. If we did it right, this should equal 39 also. 9 times 8 minus 33. We did. And a lot of the time in these kind of questions, they're going to ask you what the measure of this angle is, the vertex angle. Well, in a triangle, there are 180 degrees. So we would do, to find out that one, 180 minus 39 minus 39. So this angle is 102 degrees. And that wasn't really part of the problem, but I wanted to show you just in case, because it's good stuff. All right, let's look at the next one. You might need some extra paper for this one. Yours will be in your notebook where you have paper kind of to the side. I'll move that up. Okay. So this one doesn't actually give us a picture. It says that we have a triangle named WXY. I'm just going to label it WXY. And it tells us right here WX is congruent to WY. Well, what kind of triangle is that? Isosceles. Okay. Now, it says that the measure of angle W, make sure you're paying attention, is x plus 6. The measure of angle x is 5x minus 12. And the measure of angle y is 7x minus 48. They want to know x and the measure of each angle. Okay, so I guess we could do this a couple ways now that I look at it. You could use the angle sum theorem, but I'm going to go with using the base angles just because this is an isosceles triangle section. The base angles of these triangles are here and here because that's across from the congruent sides. So we would do 7x minus 48 equals 5x minus 12 because base angles are congruent. And I'm solving. I'm assuming you've paused the video and are just re-watching to check your work. All right, I got x equals 18. Not degrees, sorry. All right, and so now we need to find the measure of all three of the angles, so we're just going to plug it in. 18 plus 6 would mean angle W is 24 degrees. 5 times 18 minus 12 means angle X is 78 degrees. And 7 times 18 minus 48 means that angle Y is also 78 degrees, which obviously it should be because they are base angles, and base angles are congruent. All right, let's look at the next problem. This again is an isosceles triangle, which means that the base angles are congruent. The base angles this time are across from the congruent sides. So there they are. Since we don't know a measure for them, I'm just going to put x in both of them because they're the same, so we can use the same variable. And then we're going to use the triangle angle sum theorem, which means that the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So we have 28 plus x equals 180 degrees. I'm doing this the long way. You could do a shorter way, which you can figure that out on your own if you need to. Oops. All right, I'm just going to combine these now because I kind of skipped a step. 2x equals 152 divide by 2. So x equals 76 degrees. Angle M and angle N are 76 degrees. All right, and now we're going to kind of take a step into sides because we were using the sides to determine the angles before, and now we're going to use the angles to determine the sides. If these two angles are 60, then this has to be 60 also because the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. And so that makes this an equilateral triangle. Equilateral means all the sides are equal. But in order to write an equation, we really only need two of them because it means that any two sides are congruent. Since we only have these two, we're going to use those. So we're going to set the sides equal. I don't know why I used a calculator for that. So x equals 27. And if the question